Gary's going to be joining them in just a minute. And this guy's got a question right off the bat.
KYRA and Judy, what did you think of the restoration?
There you go, mic. There you go, microphones.
Hello?
Yeah.
It's actually working. Hello? Okay, no, it's not working. It is working. I can't really, okay. I thought the restoration was amazing. I've seen I've seen this movie a couple times before, and I've seen things and heard things with this restoration that I'd never seen or heard before. It's like a new movie. It's so beautiful, it's so crisp, and it sounds amazing. How do you like it, Judy?
I was able to. Am I on?
No, I'll get you. I'm working it.
Hello? Okay. I really appreciated the artistry in the movie, the lighting, the sound, just the way everyone was. Everyone looked. They just. I guess a lot of it comes down to camera angles and lighting, and I watched it with new eyes last night. Truly, and thoroughly enjoyed it, except for a few moments of mine that always make me cringe, but I kept my eyes open, which is the first.
Great, we have a question right down here.
Yeah. SCHON, besides being an actress when you were that young, what were you like thinking? Like, I picture in my mind what you were thinking when you were just like laying on the slab and everything, and then your final scene, whatever. What were you thinking as a child? You know, that's my question.
Well, doing the more active scenes, I was just thinking about what I was doing at the moment, how I was gonna, I was afraid of making a mistake, really. But lying on the table was so boring. It was unbelievable, and it was. I seem to recall that it was kind of late at night that we were doing that, and I was really tired, and I was shaking. And I was afraid that somebody was going to see me, like, shaking.
Was it cold there, or?
No, it wasn't cold, but I was just like...
Just nervous?
Yeah, just sort of overtired. Not that nobody overworked me. Like, nobody was standing over me with a whip or anything like that. Yeah, I know, no. But but when my dad and Marilyn had their scene, their bickering scene, it was much, much longer than what you see on the screen, blessedly. And... I thought that it would never end, and I do remember wondering if somebody could actually die of boredom. But I didn't, and it was okay. So, but it was fun. I had a blast doing the scenes, and even when I wasn't doing anything, not that I had like a lot of scenes, but when I wasn't doing things, I was on the set with my dad watching other people do their scenes, and it was fascinating to me. And seeing the makeup go on, and it was just it was a totally positive experience, and very, very interesting to me.
And I have a quick question. Do you guys want any water? You need any water?
It's on me, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Wait, it's Pittsburgh weather, 5 minutes it may rain. So you guys are good. There's bottled water if you guys need any. Okay, next question. Well, thank you very much for coming out. Right over here. Yeah, come on. All you gotta do is raise your hand. I got plenty of cord.
So this question is kind of for Gary. How was the symphony like synced up with the movie? Do you know about that? Like, was it recorded live watching the movie?
I'm sorry, say that again. The what?
The symphony orchestra, like that. Is it the music in the movie? How was that put together?
All of the music in Night of the Living Dead was what is called library music. In other words, Columbia Records puts a catalog of cues together, and Capitol, and you basically go in and you pick the cues, and it's already recorded. So the masterhood there was George using that so effectively, and being able to make all those punches come on the right marks. But yeah, we didn't have enough money to actually have a live scored music, so that's the answer.
And do you know if any of the music was used in any other films? Have you ever seen it?
Many other films, including Dawn of the Dead.
Okay. Question right over here.
It's for KYRA. What did your friends think of you after you filmed the movie? Were they afraid of you, or did they think you were cool, or what?
Nobody ever thought I was cool, so, to this day. And no, they weren't afraid of me. But there was one boy in my neighborhood who was a couple years older than I, and he kind of taunted me. I think he was the first person I heard use the term zombie in connection with this movie. And he walked up the street. I didn't even know him, like I knew of him. And he walked up the street past my house going, zombie, zombie. And I didn't like it. Like, it was kind of creepy, but he was a jerk. but that, you know.
If he was cute, it would have been a different story.
Oh, completely. If it had been Eben Platt, it would have been great, but no, well. But no, my friends thought it was cool, and I was actually allowed to invite a couple of them to the premiere. And I spent a lot of the time during the screening of the premiere turned around watching their reactions and giggling. So it was fun.
I have a quick question. KYRA, they use it's a pretty iconic picture of you. It's I've seen it on album covers, tattoos, posters. Who owns that? Is that public domain as well?
No, images are not public domain. You retain the rights to your likeness. And as you know, it's not taken from the film.
Right.
My dad actually shot that of me at lunchtime because I was outside wearing a sweater. And the look, you know, the evil stare was actually just me having like a low blood sugar episode. He just kept wanting to take pictures of me, and I just wanted to eat lunch. So that was just right before the eye roll, you know, like, Dad, come on, let's go, you know. So that's what that was. Well, if you look at it, you'll be able to see it. Like, oh, I recognize that.
Whole new context. All right, next question is right here.
Okay, folks. Wow. Weird. So, what made you guys actually want to do the film?
There you go.
Well, we had been a commercial production company, and Hardman and Associates was a sound recording, did radio work, a lot of comedy writing. And we both knew one another. We were in a very small town where there were very few people that actually did things like that. And you know, we were going along. The Latent Image was going along fine, and we were getting a lot of commercial work. But you're always, when you're relying on that, you're always doing someone else's creative. That's just part of the gig. And so we had been thinking for a long time that wouldn't it be nice to do something that was our own creative. And as the story I recall, Russ and George happened to WIIC Channel 11 News, which is where Chilly Billy Cardill went on to live later. Not at that point. This was prior Chilly Billy. They bought a package of 5 horror films to run on the midnight run, and Russ and George saw the first one and said, "Wow, that's not that. We could do that. We could do better than that." And so they kind of fell in and thought the horror genre was a good one, accessible, something that a good film could crawl into. Hard to do, sort of Tom Cruise blockbusters independently. And that was it. They decided to start writing Night of the Living Dead. And between Russ and John Russo and George, they came up with a script. And we said, okay, well, this is all wonderful. Now, how do we actually make it? We don't have any money. And there were 10 of us that came up with $600. And that's how we got it going. We had with that $600 we had contributions. We had enough money to buy the film. We already had the equipment because of this past work we had done in the commercial business. So it's as simple as that. Sometimes all it is just a desire to do it.
And the film actually did go on to make, what, $230 million? No. No? I thought it actually, how much money has it made?
I don't even know.
That's what Wikipedia says.
No, well, you believe everything on Wikipedia? No, the film
Darn it.
cost us $114,000
Right.
to make, and the best that I know, it was around $35 million.
35? That's
Yeah.
very good. That's probably the
Oh,
largest
yeah,
percentage. It's probably the biggest
it's-
percentage of...
Well, that's why it has the title of most, successful independent film ever made.
What did you think of the way it looked on screen last night? As far as, would you think it was more impressive audio-wise or visual-wise?
Well, I was the sound man, so obviously I have a bias, but and I really,
hear the crickets?
I really do think that. Well, the crickets are that's a whole other story, but that to me, a lot of people think the picture looks better because actually the sound is better, and it supports the picture better. That's my personal opinion. I guess that's all I can give you is my personal opinion.
All right, next question. Oh, you're scratching your nose. I thought that was a question.
Got one in the front here.
Thank you. All right.
Miss Sean, once again, did your father ever have any Harry Cooper moments when you were growing up?
Yeah. I don't know. I never thought about that.
That's a first.
Well, we didn't have any boarded up windows,
That's a good
so
You were allowed to live on all
nice.
three floors.
There was that, yeah. I would have to say probably not. Well, who knows? I don't know. Did he? I don't know.
I didn't live there.
I don't know. I didn't either. I didn't live with him either.
Well, yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe he did. Do you know? You worked with him.
I wasn't working with him when we made the film.
Okay.
Well,
But generally, was he?
previous.
No, he was very kind of level. I didn't see a lot of ups and downs.
We have a consensus. He played a role.
Yes.
That's very good then.
And by the way, Wikipedia was 30 million. My mistake.
Okay, I think they're 5.
Wishful thinking. It was wishful thinking. But the day's not over yet.
Right.
Next question. Where are we at? Absolutely.
I have one for Judy. Judy, is it true that you had originally were asked to read for the role of Barbara, but ended up with playing Judy?
Yes, it is true that I read for the role of Barbara, and I used the word dreadful. I did whatever I thought a catatonic person would do. That's what I recall George asking me to do. I'd never really seen catatonic, so it was my version. They created the role of Judy for me because I worked for Russ and George and Gary and Jack, and I really think they felt sorry for me because everyone we knew was in the film in some fashion. Every account executive in Pittsburgh is a ghoul, and it was the norm, and it was a given that you were going to be in the film. Understand? Yeah. Everybody that I knew, everybody that I saw every day was in the film at some point. My mother-in-law, Gary and Russ's mother, was in the film, and their aunt, and what can I say? It was just a given. We were going to be in the film in some fashion.
Nice. You can show them at family reunions. There you go. So it's been a while since you guys been in Evans. Well, obviously 50 years ago. How has Evans City changed in your mind? This whole city, does it look much different than what it was 50 years ago?
I was never
Okay.
the only place in Evans City that I'd ever been until, fairly recently actually, was the cemetery. No, not the cemetery, the farmhouse. Because when we were doing my scenes, they were in the farmhouse. I had never seen the cemetery or any place, but you can certainly answer that.
Yeah, I live in Evans City, so no, it hasn't changed much at all.
Nice.
I mean, in the cosmos of change, very minor.
All right. A few more questions here. What do you guys got? Right here.
Oh, yeah. What's your opinion on the 1990 remake?
I know nothing about the 1990 remake. I don't think any of us really do.
It was okay. It's not my favorite, but I understand why it was done. I don't see it sort of as a remake. I kind of see it as a completely different film, and if I view it in that way, I like it. I mean, it's different, but it's like apples and oranges, sort of, I think.
All right, and I have a lot of wire. Who needs a question? It's up to you guys. Another one, good. Oh, good, then we have one after you.
This one's for Gary. Gary, with the restoration that was just done that we've all seen, I know that it was a secret for a while. When approximately did you first find out that this was going to happen, but you had to keep it quiet?
Oh, we first knew that the Museum of Modern Art, and the reason it had to be kept quiet is because that's the Museum of Modern Art. That's the way they want to be the ones that make the announcement. What are we going to argue with them? No, we knew in August of 2015 that the museum had accepted it. And yeah, I mean, it's already, it premiered in New York in November of 16. So it's been out for a while. But yeah, it was torturous because we knew this was happening, and it took a long while. They had to raise the money to do it, and they don't move at fast pace. It's a museum. They take their time. Everything's done quickly and precisely, and yeah. So that whole time we couldn't say, "Hey, the film's being restored." So that was hard.
Well, I think it was worth it.
There's no question. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. On behalf of me and my brother, we want to ask the question. The woman upstairs that Barbara finds, that discovers... That's her right there. Oh, you're the woman at the top, yes. But what was the, how did she die? I mean, what was part of the demise of her?
That's the part the fans have to read into it.
Okay, so it's never answered.
That's the big question.
My question is, why did they eat her face and not her body?
This is true. That is a very good question. Okay, so John doesn't know that, or anybody that did. Okay.
No.
Wonderful.
And then as they're pulling,
It was a scene for shock.
And
All right,
it did good.
And to be honest, that it is, interestingly enough, my most shocking moments in Night of the Living Dead, this lady is a character in. She was the one that was, when we came to it wasn't her face, but it was her body, and and having made the film, we never went upstairs. Very rarely. We stored some stuff on the second floor.
bathroom.
Oh yeah, okay. But you'd have to run upstairs all of a sudden for something, and the thing was laying there the whole time we shot. And it's the thing. And every time I came up those stairs, it got me. And but it wasn't. It was a what do you call them? Easter egg. And again, something else for people to talk to 50 years later.
You see, whenever Ben is pulling KYRA away from the stairway, he tries to cover her face with the carpet. But there is a second there where you actually see there is a face, and it isn't eaten away. And it was our sweet KYRA.
You can recognize me by my feet.
Yes.
The soles of my feet.
And question right here.
Gary, were there any deleted scenes that you really wanted to keep in the film and there just wasn't room for it?
No, I mean, the deleted scene syndrome, where it got up to being 29 minutes of the film were found. And no, what was taken out of the film is exactly what KYRA was talking about before. One of the notes from the distributor was that they felt the dialogue between Harry and Helen in the basement went on too long. And the last calculation we were able to do accurately, since we had all the pieces, was about 1 minute and 45 seconds that was taken out. Well, 1 minute and 45 seconds is a long time
Especially when you're lying on a table over and over and over.
So, but that's it, and no, that footage was never found. It's just gone into the weeds. But in everything else, we did find 17 minutes of dailies, which of course are on the Criterion thing, which to me is actually more amazing than anything, you know. And you know, you got to see the original actual physical cut work print that George Romero did to make this film. And you know, it can't help but to just like send you back to realize that here it is, we're holding what George Romero actually, you know, cut 50 years ago. So I think that is a much better replacement in my mind than putting a minute and 45 seconds of boring dialogue back into it.
Yeah, okay, got time for about 2 or 3 more questions right this way.
No, I'm fine. Do you guys want an umbrella?
Umbrella. Give them an umbrella.
Yeah, hopefully. Yep, that I think we'll. Yes. Do we have? Oh,
Yes.
there you go.
So is the lack of deleted scenes because it was so expensive for the film to actually purchase the film?
No. The deleted scenes were simply a deleted scene because the distribution company asked us to shorten a segment. No, well, were there outtakes? Sure, there were tons and tons of outtakes that didn't get into it. The reel that I just talked about that's on the Criterion disc is 45 or 17 minutes of film that parts of them made it in, you know, but the others were extra takes. And so I would say, though, if you looked at just to answer the question more directly, if you would look at a Hollywood feature, you're probably talking about, I don't know, minimally, depending on the film, you're probably talking about a 25-to-1 ratio. In other words, they shoot 25 times what actually goes into the film. We were, most cases, maybe a 3-to-1 ratio. Lots of it is 1-to-1. You know, he got it, he liked it, and there we went. So.
Okay, another question here.
I have one for KYRA. KYRA, tell us about your first original fan, the 15-year-old boy that called you in Florida, from Florida. Do you remember that?
No, don't remember that.
Could it have
I think his name might have been Michael Tommaso. Yes, Michael Tommaso was my very first fan, and now he's here, and he makes movies. In fact, when I got married, he flew up to Pittsburgh to shoot my wedding. You should have shot me that day, but didn't. But it was a lovely video of a lovely event. It was a lovely event. But yes, Michael's my first fan. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. 1 or 2 more questions if you got them. Yeah. 1 or 2 more questions. Right over here.
This is for everybody. You know how they like to dissect movies to see what mistakes were left in the movies? Do you realize that Night of the Living Dead is the only movie that had only like 1 mistake in it? Does that make you very proud about it?
Makes me very surprised and very suspicious of those who are actually critiquing the movie. There were a lot of mistakes in Night of the Living Dead.
The funny thing is, it was about the gloves. Right at the beginning of the movie, when they were coming up to the cemetery, he took his gloves off, put them on the dashboard, and then you don't know how he ended up with the gloves at the cemetery because he put them on the dashboard. That was the only mistake they said.
Well, that would have been a glaring one, which you're telling me that for the first time. We didn't know that.
No.
Yeah, but no, there are a lot of continuity problems. Who did it again?
Back, I guess when Lycos was out, they used to go through all the movies and dissect all the movies. And I just Googled Night of the Living Dead, and they said, oh, just this mistake. And then I Googled Titanic, and there was like 5 pages of mistakes that they pointed out in the movie. You know, so it was really awesome.
Well, ours was a much, much simpler film. Yeah, But I could sit with you and at least create 10 or 12.
And let's just one more question to round it out. Right here.
Hey, how are you guys? So did one of you guys own the house that you shot the film in, or did you guys buy it, or?
No, we rented it. And fortunately, we were able to rent it because it was going to be torn down and made way for a turf farm. And an intern that we had working for us at the Latent Image at the time knew we were looking for a rural farmhouse, and he goes, "Wow, I think I know of one. Well, I used to go to a summer camp, and there's a house just like you're talking about on the road into the summer camp." Went and checked it out. The house was vacant. Again, it was ready to be torn down to be a sod farm. So we, when you go into a location normally, you have to repair everything that you damage, and we're hammering into window frames. If we had to repair all that, we probably could not have made the movie, to be very honest. And so it was free reign, do whatever you want, because they knew. And it took them about a year to tear it down till they finally got to that point. But yeah, I think as I remember, we paid $600 a month, I think, for it, as a film location, where film locations now cost $600 an hour. So.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming out, answering
Thank you
questions.
for having us, and having me work on my tan.
Absolutely. You guys are headed back to the pavilion to do some signing. If you didn't have a chance to ask a question or need an autograph, now's the time to do it. Once again, let's hear it for them. Our first Q&A of the day, KYRA, Judy, and Gary. We're going to start the Q&A in about 30 seconds. Please join us. It's the last Q&A of the day. ELLA-MAE Smith, Paula Richards, and John KIRCH. All right, we're just about, you guys about ready?
We're ready. I'm ready.
And like I'm saying, if you have a question, just raise your hand, and we're going to have a nice Q&A for the wind down. I can always count on a question from you. You're going to be my first question. No, not maybe. You have a real good history of good questions.
Okay, let's get it.
All right, I like your style. All right, you have your first question here.
When the movie first came out, what was the town's reception of the movie?
What was the town's?
Yeah, the town's reception of the movie.
I think I can answer that. They had they didn't want to have anything to do with it, I don't think, because they had a video store in Evans City, and I went to buy a copy. They didn't even have it in there. In fact, they still don't do much about this.
You know, when I worked at a movie theater in 1968, it was my first job. I was 16 years old, and they put up in the marquee made in Pittsburgh, and they packed the place, and they held it over. It did extremely well, and I was a 16-year-old movie theater usher, and I remember big, enthusiastic adolescent audiences. So, I mean, that's not Evans City, but that's Pittsburgh. They liked seeing all the supers on the television screen with familiar names. I bet you they'd go crazy if there was actually shots of downtown Pittsburgh in it that were recognizable. But nobody made movies in Pittsburgh, and so it was extremely novel. That's what I got to say about it.
Great, let's get a few more questions. Right here.
When did you first realize the large impact this movie had on fans?
It's been about 10 years ago that we started doing these things, that I started doing them. Maybe they did them before that, and I don't know.
That was the last one that they found, so I haven't been involved for that long, and I wasn't aware that there was anything going on.
And what do you make of all of this then, as a newcomer?
Well, as a newcomer, it was probably 8 years ago, but I'm amazed with everybody else that it took off. I was 19 when I made that movie. I was a sophomore in college, and everything was a joke. And I had a really good time with this joke.
How did you hear about auditioning or getting to be part of the film?
I was the receptionist at Hardman Associates, which was the recording studio. And the interesting thing about that is the woman that I replaced was Judy Ridley. She was the receptionist before me. And I just got waylaid into it. I didn't have much to say. They said show up during the day and then stop over at Evans City at night.
And John, how did you find out about it or get into it?
The entire city was talking about the fact that a movie was being made in Pittsburgh. And I was extremely interested in being involved in it somehow, but it was next to impossible as a 15-year-old. You can't drive when you're 15. And even if I could, I'd never have found that location. But I was lucky enough to meet Jack Givens, who was the chief engineer at Hartman Associates. And he very kindly arranged for me to be in the movie and took me out there, and I got to do it.
How many days were you involved?
I went out for 2 days, and I was involved for one of those. It was really, most of the movie was already in the can, and they were picking up shots. It was in October, and a couple of weeks later than it is now, and it was cold. Yep.
And how many days were you all filming?
How did I get in the movie?
Yeah.
Well, that's a story. Our neighbor came down and said, my husband and I ran a cabinet shop. And he came down, and the neighbor came down to the cabinet shop, and he said, they're going to make a movie, and I think it's going to be right behind your house. And naturally, me being a smart mouth, I said, well, when they see me and my husband, they're going to want us in there. And we all laughed about it, you know. And one afternoon, we were sitting in our yard, and the car stopped, and a young lady got out, and she said, how would you two like to be in the movie? And my husband said, no. And I said, I think that'd be a good idea. And you know, we do have a little way of persuading our husbands to do what we want to do. So he said, well, we'll go back and see what's going on. When we went back, they sat us down in chairs, and pretty soon they were slopping goop all over our face, and we were goals. That was it.
And they used Bosco syrup, am I correct with that?
Yes, yes. Yeah, that was the blood.
How much of that did they use? Did they get carried away with it, or just a little bit here and there?
Well, they spritted it on the walls and everything, you know, to make it look like the blood was splashing and that. But they made my husband's hand look like it had a great big gash in it. And then in the movie, he stoops down and he picks up a brick with that hand, wails it through the window, so the ghouls can get in. So that's an important place.
How long did the makeup take for all of you?
It was all summer.
No, how long? Hours, minutes?
Sometimes, the makeup?
Yeah.
No, that only took about 15 or 20 minutes. That's all.
I don't remember it taking long either, but I did see them put the scar on ELLA-MAE's husband's hand, and things like that take a little longer. It was like built up with mortician's wax. Tell them about the fact that you still own the...
Wow, what do you still own?
I still have a piece of that mortician's wax preserved from his hand. I'm hoping that someday it'll bring me some money. I don't know.
I didn't have any makeup. I was supposed to be in a hospital gown, and it was low budget. So they put me in a sheet. And in some of the places you can see in the back where they have it pinned. But I had no makeup on, and when I was the secretary in the newsroom, there was no makeup. But the nude, the wonderful nude. I was a PA because I worked for it when I did a little bit of everything. And Carl called me over and said, we got to put makeup on the nude. And I said, really? So I did her back, and he did her front.
All right, next question. Question right over here.
Hello, my question is for ELLA-MAE. How often do you find fans taking pictures by your mailbox?
I didn't get it.
How often do you find fans taking pictures by your mailbox?
I enjoy seeing the people come out. If you were on the tour this morning, I was still at home and I came out and waved to everybody on the bus.
Okay, let's get some more questions here. This is great. All right, who's next? Right over here.
If you could change one aspect of your movie, what would you change?
So if you could change one thing about your performance, what would you change?
One thing about my performance.
Or anything that you did or how you looked?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'd like to be shown more out front than clear in the back being a goal.
Unless you were the nude.
I can't remember what I was going to say.
Try you, maybe okay.
Oh, I'd go with ELLA-MAE. I wish I was in it more.
That's what I mean,
At that time, did you wish you were in it more, or did it seem like now after it's over, you wish you would have been in more? Like when you were doing it, did you think that it was going to be over here, over there? How much time did you think you were going to even be on the screen when you were doing it? Did it give you any idea of what?
I didn't have a clue, but when I saw the trailer as a movie theater usher, I was in the trailer 3 times. So I was very excited by that.
Yes.
I remember what I was going to say. I had a line in the newsroom, and they cut it.
What was the line? Do you remember?
This just came in.
I can't see why they would have got rid of that.
I don't know. I thought I was good.
That sounded good now. All right, next question over here.
Being in something as iconic as Night of the Living Dead, each of you have a favorite horror film?
Good question. A favorite horror film? Aside from the one you were in.
Nosferatu, F.W. Murnau, 1922.
Yep.
I'm not very big on the genre. No.
I would have to say this is the only horror movie that I have ever watched. It's terrible to say that, but it is.
John, so you had a history of liking horror movies before getting into this?
Oh, a lot of adolescent boys like it, and I was no exception.
All right. Some more questions? Back here. I'll come get you.
My question is for the two of you who are primarily younger, high school, college age. How did you relate to your peers while you were doing this? Did you tell them what you were doing? Were they interested? How did that work for you?
Well, I was 36 years old when we made this movie, and probably was almost one of the oldest ones that was there.
I remember sitting in the kitchen discussing philosophy with some of the other cast members. Like I said, I didn't take it seriously until I saw it put together, and I thought, where did this come from?
So did any of you have much interaction with any of the other cast members?
No.
Once in a while, being as I live right on the road right in front of it, that Russ and them would come up and we'd sit in the living room and talk for a while, and have coffee, and Gary would come out to see me. And I've had friends from New York that just saw the movie, and they would come once a year to see me. So it was nice.
Did any of you go to the premiere, and what was it like?
Oh, the premiere, well, the first one you're talking about.
Yes.
It was wonderful, really. How did we know that anything like this was ever going to come about it, And we went, but when I did, that was the first time I had seen the last part of the movie. And we didn't know what was going on because it was done in Pittsburgh. And when I saw KYRA killing her mother. I thought, oh my God, I can't watch this. And I only was thinking, I'd hate to have my daughter do that to me.
What was the question?
About the premiere. What was it like?
Oh, it was a big thing for me because I came from some blue-collar working-class neighborhood, and it was fancy. People were spiffed up, and there were searchlights, and movie premiere. Good heavens! And at the reception afterwards, I tasted caviar first time ever, and I had no idea what that would be about. It sort of expanded my life to be exposed to this.
Our group met at the recording studio, and they picked us up in the limousine there, and then took us down, and there was the red carpet out to the curb, and we walked into this beautiful theater, and I had never been in a limousine. That was a brand new experience, and I was just awed by the whole thing. And then afterwards, like you said, it was a meal like I would not have had. Well, it wasn't a meal, but it was a reception that I would not have ever gone to. It was wonderful.
Nice. And I take it you had a very nice time last night. A little bit about anything last night jump out at you? Anything that, anything seeing that restored, how nice it looked?
It was beautiful. I had seen it before, but believe it or not, was what blew me away last night was the Byam Theater, because we were all backstage and seeing everything work, and it was amazing. And the dressing rooms, and it was amazing.
Yeah, it was really interesting to be backstage at the Byam, and the audience was so easy because they were so appreciative, and they loved the film so much that no matter what you might have walked out on stage and said, it made you feel like you were brilliant.
We had a good time last night. It really was nice. It was nice to see all the cast that's left. There's not that many left anymore. And if anybody was there, they got to see me act like a jerk up on the stage.
That was hilarious.
Let's get a few more questions. We have about 7 or 8 minutes. We can get 1 or 2 more questions. Oh, right over here.
Being that you all didn't have prior experience with acting, what was it like to have to go back and do the same thing again and again for takes?
We didn't go back and do things over and over again. George was very careful with every foot of film because it was expensive per foot to develop. So there weren't any take twos.
But there was a lot of preparation.
Oh yes, but as far as the filming is concerned, all the rehearsal was done, everybody had their lines, and it was shot once. And they also had to figure out scenes. They had to figure out how long the scenes were because they could only use so much film.
All right, can we get one final question? Right here. I knew I could count on you.
This is for Paula. Paula, when you did your other role in the newsroom, and you're typing in the background and working on I mean, was that rehearsed, doing what you normally do?
No, I wasn't a very good typist, and every time I would type something, the keys would lock. So I spent that entire set unlocking keys so I could continue to type.
Because you can really see that now in the restored version. And I figured the way you had your hair up and the glasses, I figured, is that the way that you used to go to work that day? Or would you used to
I had
that was normal
that
work attire.
I had worked that day and just went from my desk into the studio.
Any final things you want to say? It's just so nice to have you.
I would just like like to thank everybody for coming out to this. I think this is wonderful. It's been a joy to my life, and I just hope that I'm still here next year to enjoy this again.
Yes.
I'm not planning on making the 100th anniversary, but I agree with ELLA-MAE. It's just amazing that you folks are still interested and still come out. It's just wonderful. And again, I thank you.
Oh, I don't have anything new to add to that. This is a great event. This is my 5th one, and I'm really happy this is happening.
Great. We'll be heading back to your tables for just a bit.